Jamaican government has failed although they have independence. Jamaica last year spent 1.4 billion US dollars on food importation, and it's not healthy food. I'm almost choking. Flour, sugar, cornmeal, and processed food.
During the pandemic, there was something called an interruption in the supply chain of goods and services worldwide. Worldwide, not just Jamaica. And what did that do? That caused the price of goods to rise.
My YouTube family and friends, it's me, the one and only Jamaican Daya again. And me Daya for show up the politician them again. YouTube family. I heard Prime Minister Holness at one of his JLP conference. And he said that the inflation in Jamaica, the high price of foods and services, is a global phenomenon, which is true. And he also said that he cannot really do anything about it because due to the pandemic and supply chain issues, he cannot do anything about it, which is true but also false. He said what we have to do as the government, we have to manage the situation.
And every one of you here would have experienced that. You go in the supermarket 1 week and the price of good is X. The next week you go in is X plus 1. The next week you go in is X plus 2. The following week you go in is X plus 3. Almost every week, the prices of the goods that you buy to survive, sometimes the most basic goods, increase.
Before I get into the meat and the potatoes and the ackee and the saltfish, this video will be in 2 parts. This one will give you a historical context why his argument is true in regards to the whole idea that the food situation in Jamaica has always been a global phenomenon, because guess what? Jamaica exports more of its food than what it imports. However, it now imports more than what it exports. It's got a contradiction. So here I am to debunk the contradiction. So no hold on a seatbelt and no mix up on a cornmeal porridge, because breakfast will be served a la carte style.
It caused a serious crisis in Jamaica.
Jamaican people, the only reason why we African diasporans are in Jamaica is because Jamaican slave owners needed cheap labor. The only reason why many of us immigrate to America and Canada and Western Europe is because those countries need cheap labor. It's not because they like us or want us. But if you don't have cheap labor, it is very difficult to maintain profit, because what I have learned in political economy, profit is made from human labor. So the cheapest you can get the labor, the more profit you can get. So the reason why most of us are in Jamaica is because of profit. Jamaican economy is built on farming, large plantations and pastoral, meaning that raising animals and planting sugar, banana, coffee, fruits. Most of the cash crops you can export to Europe. So in reality, Jamaican people, Jamaica is an economy in a country that's never designed to feed its population. And if you drive around Jamaica and pay close attention, you'll realize that almost all the roads are built from plantation, factories like rum estates and bauxite straight to seaport. It is not designed for the average Jamaican to develop and enjoy beautiful and wonderful lifestyle. We are there in Jamaica as well. Slaves before, and now you call what you call cheap labor, wage labor. Jamaica is built on a plantation economy that produce foods for the richer country. This is why Britain became one of the richest empires in the world, and it got most of its wealth from sugar plantation and trading slaves. Now, think about this. If you're somebody who oppresses a particular group of people, would it be in your interest to, would say, educate them, empower them, or inspire them to compete with you? No, impossible. When you drive around Jamaica, pay close attention again. The most fertile lands, most productive lands, are where you have sugar, banana, and say tobacco plantation. Tobacco is basically on the decline. So those are the plantations you normally have. Now observe carefully. Most of the black population always get their little plots on the mountain sides. Take a look in Jamaica again. They get the rocky parts of the land, meaning that the slave masters use nature against the slaves. Because when you get those plots of land on those rocks, when the rain falls, it washes all the topsoil from those hillsides down to the plantation. So the plantation always getting better nutrients and can produce better yield. However now, pay close attention again. Because of that, most slaves could not produce, I would say, enough crops to be able to feed themselves and also sell in the marketplace. So how the system is set up, that is what you always have to work for massa, because the land is working against you and the entire economy is working against you. If you're using most of your fertile lands to produce cash crops to export, how can you feed your population? Impossible. Your population cannot produce enough corn, maize. They can produce enough yams. They cannot produce enough breadfruit. Keep in mind, breadfruit is a Polynesian food. It's come from Polynesia. Yams come from Africa. So they brought those foods from Africa when they're bringing slaves, simply because those crops you do not have to maintain on the regular. Furthermore, they produce high level of carbohydrates, which the slave population needs for energy to produce enough cash crops on the plantation. So the whole system scientifically is designed for you not to win. So when you drive around Jamaica now, although they say we have independence, most of those lands are owned by whom? In 1962 they say we got independence and people jump and party and all kind of madness. But who owns most of the land? If I own majority of the land in any society, I'm restricting the masses access to land. Now I want you to think about this. Have you ever seen a goat, a sheep, a chicken, or a cow paying rent and mortgages? Think about it, people. Am I superior to any one of you who are watching me talking gibberish? Some common sense in here. We have the same natural rights that the Almighty God created in all of us. So how come you born and have no land, and how come I born and I have no land? If you have land, Would you be able to provide shelter, food and clothing? But if you have no land, what do you have to do? You have to go and sell your labor for a price. And if I hire you for your labor, I will pay you just enough so you can come back tomorrow, the next day, and the other day. So I can always profit from your labor power. Now, family, I want you to really listen to this part of this video. I believe, based on my limited intellectual capacity, it is not as vast. So I don't want you really to roast me or kill me or burn me out. Emancipation Proclamation in Britain. The bill was passed in 1833. In Jamaica, it became what you call an acknowledged law in 1838. But the plantation owners were always tricking the people. Lack of information, not enough information, so therefore the slaves were still working. But you know, Paul Bogle and William Gordon got wind of it and said, boy, you know, they're tricking the people. So they started a revolt you call the Mohr Bay Rebellion. They stormed the courthouse and killed off a lot of the white people, and you know, the British government in Jamaica back then just get mad and kill off about 430 of them and hang Paul Bogle and William Gordon. And this is how it happened. It was a rebellion. A lot of people died for change to happen. Emancipation Proclamation was a good thing for enslaved people, but it was a better thing for plantation owners. You know, Bill Clinton says, and he said it very well, was the economy stupid? For instance, you in Jamaica or anywhere in the world, I used to go to the local markets in the 50s and 60s. And in the 80s and 90s, you see all of these big supermarkets start to pop up. You find that there's a shift from the average man selling the local markets, and it's moved to a centralized system, the supermarkets. Now the supermarkets are shifting now to what you call Amazon and Uber. So the centralization of power is very, very interesting. Now, as the Emancipation Proclamation happened, and slave jump and all of that, civil war in America taking place between the North and the South. And you have the abolitionists and all of those people saying, you know what, slavery is bad and they have to end this because it's bad to humanity and it's not good, and God didn't create people to be enslaved. Man must be free. I hope we're not boring the people, so hang on tight. I'm coming to the synthesis on this argument. One of America's great social scientists and a self-taught lawyer, George Fitzhugh, he wrote a book called Cannibals All and Slave Without Masters. He was one of those social scientists around when President Lincoln was alive. And he wrote, "It is possible to place labor and capital in harmonious or friendly relation, except by means of slavery which identifies their interest. Would that the gentleman lay his capital out in land and negroes, he might be sure in whatever hands it came that it would be employed to protect laborers, not to oppress them. For when slaves are worth near $1,000 a head, they will carefully and will provided for. In any other investment he may make of it, it will be used as the engine to squeeze the largest amount of labor from the poor for the least amount of allowance." Let me break it down in layman terms. What he was saying is that slavery was not abolished because human beings became more, I would say, morally upright. He said, if you look at it this way, when a slave owner making money from slave, that means you have enough capital because you own slaves, so therefore you can buy and sell them, so you make capital. And you make capital, you make money from the work they do, so you have a nest egg. So what you do when you sit back and relax as a slave owner now, like me who are a slave owner to my books. Anyway, he said, when you sit back and relax, you want to use your capital to invent in what's called steam engine, the cotton gin. You want to find more effective and efficient modes of production. Because slaves, you have to clothe them, feed them, and shelter them. But you're also prone to rebellion from them, and that is not good for business. So he said, based on Britain and the north part of America, they were moving away from slave modes of production and system to what you call wage labor, capitalism. So what he said, the plantation owners, the north was pushing for you to free slaves, but guess what? The north freed them but didn't give them land. The south wanted to hold on to slaves. So the north, with the support of Britain and Western Europe, be able to get rid of slavery, and the slave jumped and party and carnival and crop over, or no drink liquor, no party, or no blow vuvuzela. No vuvuzela never did them time, but me just talk the things. So what happened, people? The slave jump, and even today they jump and shake the behind, not realizing that the game has just changed in them. Change. So what he did, they said the system freed the slaves, but they didn't give them land. You see, land is where the power lies, because you can clothe yourself, feed yourself, and shelter yourself. But with no land, what you have to do, after they jump and party and everything, they go say, wait, you know, I'm out of food, I'm hungry, you know. Go back to master, say, master, can you give me a job? And when you keep in mind, when you change the mode of production, moving away, say, from donkey carts or horse and buggy, you start to use train to carry payload, and you start to produce more cotton with mechanical stuff now, you start to produce more goods. And if you're producing more goods and there's not enough consumption, what you got, you have stagflation, and the economy falls. Now, if I'm a slave owner, which I wouldn't want to be, remember, you have to clothe them, feed them, and shelter them. If you're not making any money, they now become a liability and a burden to you. You start to lose money. But if you free them and don't give them land, you hold the power and you control that free labor sword that you have no responsibility for. This is why when Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves that moved from the south to the north, and after the Civil War, he had a meeting with the black leaders back then, and he asked them, gentlemen, what can I do for you? The black leader says, Mr. President, we need land. This is where Lincoln promised them 40 acres and a mule. The mule was inefficient as the horse, so they gave us the downgrade of the horse and we became the mule. Yeah. What happened to Lincoln after, people? He was in a theater and in nowhere a bullet pierced his skull. What did the vice president do after? He vetoed 40 acres and a mule. So that's why you hear black people talking about, where is our 40 acres and a mule? Because the powers know that if I give you land, you have power. But if I restrict you land, you must always keep coming back for a job. your boss will only pay you just enough to keep you coming back. And they put the retirement age at age 70 when you're almost dead. So you never really get anything, do you? The only reason why we're in Jamaica is because England wanted cheap labor to produce sugar and other cash crops. Jamaica per se, Jamaicans, the majority, could not and still can't feed themselves because the country is not designed for them to produce enough food to feed themselves. Most of what is produced goes to the developed countries. Jamaica, on the other hand, got emancipation in 1838. They freed the slaves. But there also wasn't no major land redistribution. The lands are still owned by a few, especially the fertile land. So yes, Prime Minister Holness is right about the fact that it's a global phenomenon because Jamaica was never designed to help the small man. The only thing needed from Jamaica people, you know what it is? Sunshine. What do tourists go to Jamaica for? The sunshine. What does the powers need Jamaica for? The sunshine to produce the crop. And we have the sunshine. So that's the only reason why. We have to look, I would say, the 1980s to really get the gist of Jamaica's economy and what happened. In the 1980s, when I was a boy, I used to walk around and run the street, shoot bird and teach people mango and sugar cane. Yeah, confession good for the soul, you know how things go. Yeah, so in the 1980 election, remember, Ronald Reagan became president in the United States and Margaret Thatcher in 1979 became Prime Minister of England. Both of them came up with this new thing called neoliberalism. Before there was Keynesianism, where the state control most of its enterprises and industries. So that happened is that when they control it, they were basically helping the average man, a lot of labor unions, and the average man could have worked a decent income. But they said, no. We need neoliberalism where we can liberalize the market. We need to make private capital run the market. Combined with the WTO, the World Trade Organization, or they say, tell you what, countries must remove tariffs, remove taxes and make goods and labor, not labor, flow freely. So guess what happened now, people? Think about the agrarian society back then. It employed, or the plantation society, it employed about over 20% of the labor force in Jamaica. I grew up around a plantation, you know. And people, me have to drop this in there. As we said before in one of my previous videos, when I failed my first common entrance, my mother said, son, we can't believe you failed it. Because you're a bright boy, I was going A class. When I failed the second common entrance, my mother dropped down, I have to throw water upon her and said, Mom said, boy, we don't understand why you feel. When I was doing my research in the university, I've read a document. Profound. I wish if I had kept it that time. And how Jamaican society was set up on plantation economy. The system would deliberately fail a certain amount of the students. If you're part of the upper class, or if you have links, you go to the big high school and where you can get the high education. Boys like me who don't grow up with a father and live in some rural area, I'm right, but system gonna flush me out. Somebody might buy my spot and me don't get a higher education because of the system. So we have to work with the system. Well, I'm mad them time to become and say, how can you really keep me back even before I was born based on your system and your bottom line for a few? But as I'm saying, I saw the system sit, so I have to deal with the system. So you gotta realize that here is an economy, a plantation economy that hires about over 20% of the global, of the workforce in Jamaica. Now here comes Reagan and Thatcher. Neoliberalism. You must remove tariffs, you must liberalize the economy, and goods must flow freely. Combined with the OPEC oil crisis in 1973, Jamaica had to spend most of its reserve country to buy oil and goods because guess what now? Oil price fly up to the roof and they couldn't afford it. And that was what you call a trick again to suck out money to the poor countries. Spike oil, create a war, spike oil, and you lose money. That's how the system set up. So now, here's Michael Mann faced with a dilemma, what to do. He was tipping towards democratic socialism like Cuba. America don't want that. I wish if he had tried what Nayib Bukele is doing now in El Salvador, maybe he'd have won. But he tried to go to socialism. Guy said, boy, eat what you grow and grow what you eat and yada yada yada. Although Lisa and I said, boy, foolish is that. Can't eat what you grow, them they're full-time stuff. But however, let me digress. A large percent of your population survive off the plantation. Free cheap goods now from America and Europe, like your milk, your cheese, your flour, your corn meal, the basic stuff, beans, basic stuff and vegetables, basic thing that Jamaica used to produce. No, what happened with this liberal economy now, those things are coming from big agri now in the US now, dumping on Jamaica. And I remember as a little boy, farmers dumping their milk, dumping fruit because they can't make any money because now you have a bigger producer start to dump bigger food, genetically modified food on your island. And poor people don't have money, so where are you gonna go? So what happened? The bigger boys cannibalized the small man. So what happened? It destroyed the local economy.
The violence in our country is at a level where it requires every Jamaican to speak with one voice against violence.
So people, guess what's going to happen now? Young people now want food because Jamaica can't produce the food, that's to rely on foreign. So when they cannibalize your market and kill your agriculture, after a while they're going to jack up the prices. You say you kill our economy? No. You have kids to feed, you have no money, you have no jobs because the economy mashed up. So what are you going to do? You understand why crime start to move up now? Because the average man can't feed. Remember now, the US now with Siaga now is kind of really putting the squeeze on Jamaican economy now where you have food shortage, although there was never no shortage, there was never no drought in North America, so what, we're not getting no flour if we married flour with sardine and chicken back and half a bread and marry with rice and all them things there. So what happened? There was a huge shortage because what happened? Food became a weapon. So the JLP administration now, with them Siaga now, was using America now to weaponize the food now. So what happened now to kill the socialism movement? And you know when people hungry, they're not thinking and just get mad and say, boy, you know man, you are causing thing here, and make up nice. And I understand your point. But that was a way the US was using to break socialism in Jamaica. Now, this whole new policy of Reaganomics and Thatcherism took hold. Jobs got obliterated. Now, listen again. You have a cash crop economy where you're not producing enough food, you're not producing enough yam, banana, potatoes, animals, eggs, and the basic stuff to feed your population. You have a system that only produces cash crops. No. When I was a young boy too, the weed was cash crops. And you used to have those planes flying from Miami and North Carolina coming to Jamaica and picking up the herbs. I used to plant the herbs too. I used to see my mother plant the herbs and we used to make good money. I remember one day though, one day people, my mother saw me smoking banana leaves. My mother said, boy, what's wrong with you? Boom, bust up on my nose, blood. Mother said, boy, don't follow them fools, boy, go to school. I thank God the day for that. The vast percentage of them who are dealing with weeds and whatever, Either them dead, them broke, or them they are prison. But life mash up because what happened? They didn't build the intellect. As the Bible says, the fool and his money will soon depart. The fool depart. The amount of money they made in the 80s, if they had the knowledge, Jamaica would be big and powerful. But you know, a brother with money, he goes for three things: women, clothing, and cars. That's always been the detriment of us, because everybody has to see us riding and flowing and yeah, look how I'm living. Anyway, let me get back to the point. So we used to plant the wheat cash crops. We used to make good money. Now, think about it. The same time Reagan had a war on drugs. War on crime. Think about it. Neoliberalism, Reaganomics destroyed the agricultural economy in Jamaica. The same thing is taking place in America, war on drugs and war on crime. Who is dealing a lot of drugs in America? The big fish dealing the drugs, you know, but the small man was what the media frame and said, look at those ones dealing with drugs. So what happens now? American prisons ballooned with black men. Ballooned with black men. Because prison industrial complex became a privatized system. So the more prisoners, the more money the profiteer keep making. War on crime was also a part of it. No. You see the dichotomy and the trick of how the system set up? They've destroyed your economic base. And when you commit a crime now, they go around and create new laws now to pen you into the system so they can keep making money. In Jamaican situation now, what could they do? So we have crime went through the roof in Jamaica. That's why from 1980, the crime rate is out of control. Combined with political parties who are fighting subversive warfare by guns coming in. And the country cannot feed itself. You see the mixture of the bad soup. Alice crab pot that man.
Some of you lose your job so you never had any income. So while prices are go up, you don't have any income. That makes you feel miserable, angry, cross.
Now summarize Holness' argument. Yes, he was right. But when we got independence in 1962, Jamaica became an independent state. But who owns most of the land and who still do? So those large plantation lands that used to produce tobacco and other stuff. Remember, there has not been any major land redistribution in Jamaica. So although you have independence, it's only a few still control most of the large tracts of lands. So what happened? You can't go produce in those lands because those lands are producing cash crops for the international market. Now, in a situation like that now, you find that the global economy has shifted now where food is not as profitable anymore. So what? You find in Jamaica now that resorts are just filling the coastlines. And gated communities are filling those farmlands. It's more profitable. So, you find the owners of those lands are developing those lands now to make massive housing schemes because it's more for the bottom line. You can't kill them. I will do the same. It's about being dynamic in my economic decision. However, those are private interests. The government now, the first responsibility of any government is to protect its citizens. One, from outside enemies and internal enemies like the gangs and the criminals. Jamaican government is not doing that. Number 2 is to protect its citizens by being able to produce and provide food for them. Jamaican government has failed, although they have independence. Jamaica last year spent $1.4 billion US on food importation, and it's not healthy food. I almost choked up. Flour, sugar, cornmeal, and processed food. So you see the situation Jamaica is in. The man who feed you, can control you. The man who feed you has shown us before in the 1980s that he used food as a weapon against us, and still we're. So, let me wrap this up, people, because I know we have the next part to do. I don't want to bore you, but because so much information that hit me, I try to read it out. You know the thing? Andrew Holness is really throwing red meat to the people and trying to deflect the whole thing. He's trying to pull himself away to say, tell you what, we don't have nothing to do with the food thing, but they can do. Because if Rwanda been through a genocide in 1994, and Rwanda GDP on food nowadays is 27%. 27% GDP to economy, 27%. And the GDP for one Rwandan is $834, and the GDP for one Jamaican is over $5,000 US. And you're gonna tell me that a country that is poor can have more food security than a country that is richer with a smaller population of only 2.8 million people? Talk to me, people. Drop your comments down there, because guess what? Me no fool, me no mad, I may have some sense. So I have the book them here, so I read some things. Yeah. So me no come kind of chew you and deflect you. If the government want to make Jamaica food secure, they can do that. Because Jamaica has the climate to produce almost everything except wheat.
And I totally understand and get it when the average Jamaican got upset with their government. It's not something that we did. We don't have anything to do with it. It's a global phenomenon. But we are the government, and we must manage it.
But if Jamaica produces what we want people, and the PSOJ control the food market system, Remember, as I said before, the local market been replaced by the supermarket. And the supermarket will be replaced by Amazon, where now you order online. So one system cannibalizes another system. So when you have the local agrarian system now, and in 1980 when neoliberalism destroyed Jamaican agriculture, and the food importation and control move away from the state now to a private sector, PSOJ, where them control that now. You think they're not going to let it go? They will not let it go. Because at the end of the day, it benefits their bottom line. Keep in mind, people, your tax dollars, like your pension and your NHT funds, if you do the research, they invest in those private entities. So the whole system is mixed up. So if you don't understand the game, you cannot win the race. People, we go on again, yes.